Hello, and welcome back. This video is about adding an enhanced input support to the player blueprint to pan around the camera. And a special thanks to all my supporters. Thank you for helping me help others. To start, I'm just going to create an input folder here. In here, we effectively have two types of files for the enhanced input. First off, they're both under input. The first is input action and input mapping context. So an input action is something like movement or clicking, selecting, looking around, etc. Since our movement will be represented along two axes, we switch our value type here to axis 2D. So we save that. That's all we need for our input action here. And then we create an input mapping context. I'm just going to call it IMC underscore default. So in here, this is where we connect our input actions. So we're add an action or add a mapping here. Select our input action, and then we have a number of inputs that we're mapping. So for this, we're going to use WASD. I'll click that, hit the key. So with this set, in our player, so under Blueprints, BP player, we then can, in begin play, we'll get our player controller. From that, we want to get the enhanced input local player subsystem. And from that, we want to add mapping context. This is where we choose the input mapping context that we created. And that's all we need to do. It's now connected to this player. If you wanted to do this in C++, you could just start a new template or a C++ template project in Unreal. It'll be in the character section. You can see it in the top-down shooter series that I made. It's effectively doing the same thing. It's getting the player controller from inside the character class, using that to get the subsystem of type enhanced input local player subsystem, and then calling add mapping context. After that, you will call bind action to map the input action and its event to a function. In Blueprints, we can just search for IA underscore move. We'll find this one here, span that, and you can see all the events that it can do. They should mostly be self-explanatory. Started is when the key press is down, canceled and completed. Completed is when it's up. Canceled's a little more complicated. You can see in the tooltip. And then ongoing would be if you're holding and it wants to. You want to keep getting messages over and over. For what we're doing, we can just use triggered. For now, I'm just going to print out. I'm going to make it a 0 duration. Remove print from log, and we're just going to send the action value. So when we hit play and select in here, if I hit W, or if I hold W rather, you can see that its X value is 1 and the Y value is 0. If I hit or hold A, S, or D, that's A, that's S, that's D. You can see they're all the same value because what's happening is your keyboard is a one-dimensional on or off setting. So it never sends the 0 value in this case, but this means the key is down. It's sending WASD is all the same input. So the way that we differentiate that is in our example here, if I click on something, if I stop the game and then click on something, so you can see the red, the green, and the blue arrow is pointing upwards. Red arrow over here, this is also red. That's the x-axis. The y is the green axis, and blue is the other. So effectively, what we want is when we hit W or S, it's going to be going along the x-axis, and A and D will go along the y-axis. So you saw right now X is just set to 1, anytime any of those 4 keys is being set. So if X is our X-axis, that's W and S. So for W, X is positive. For S, it'll be negative. That means we need to add a modifier. And the modifier is simply negate. So if I go back in, play again, if I hold down W, same thing. If I hold down S, it's now -1. Similarly, if we go to our A and D, we want to add new modifiers for both. And this is what Swizzle is for. So Swizzle maps a 1D input onto the y-axis of a 2D action. If you expand that, you can see that the order is YXZ. It says it swaps the Y and X axis. For D, we want the same thing. And then the difference between A and D is that A is going to be going left, which was the negative. So then we add another component here and negate. So with that all done, W and S are like that. That is A, and then D is the other. So now that we have all those set up properly, we can remove this. We're just going to use that to get our actor location. We're going to add, we want to take this action value. So this is just, 0 or 1, depending on the direction. I actually want to just multiply this by a small value. Just convert this to a float, throw a 5 in there, and then drag the vector 2 into a 3. It just converts it. It's all good. And then we're calling set actor location. So that's a very simple camera movement. I go back in here. Now A and D, W and S goes in the directions we're expecting. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video and would like to see more, you know what to do. And if you would like to support this channel, watch these videos 2 weeks early, or just want to download the project files, you can do so through my Patreon linked below.